Hello everyone! Every page tells a new story. Welcome to the world of endless animation. The movie begins with Fred, the little boy who wishes to become an adventurer or explorer. He goes to watch a movie about the great explorer Charles, where we learn that Charles was in South America in a place called Paradise Falls. We see him in the movie presenting a skeleton of a new creature, different from dinosaurs, living in the Paradise Falls. But the scientists did not believe him and stripped him of his position as an explorer. As a result, Charles decided to go to Paradise Falls and not return until he captured that creature. The film ends happily with Fred, who plays with his balloon, imagining it to be a hot air balloon. By chance, Farid hears the sound of a child playing as an explorer inside an old house. When he enters the house, he's surprised to find a little girl named Ellie, acting as if she were a hot air balloon. When Ellie sees Fred, she gets scared, and the balloon flies out of his hand, but she calms him down and welcomes him to her Explorers Club, also giving him a badge. Ellie takes him with her to get the balloon, and when Fred tries to climb over to get it, he falls and gets hurt. Later, Ellie visits him and gives him his balloon, shows him her adventure book, and tells him that she plans to travel to South America and live next to the Paradise Falls like Charles did. She asks him to promise to help her, and Fred agrees to her request. Time passes, and Farid and Ellie grow up and get married. They buy the old house and prepare it for living in. Days pass, and they enjoy their life together, preparing a room in the house to welcome their child. But Ellie suffers from a problem that prevents her from conceiving. Fred tries to ease her by giving her the adventure book and reminding her of her dream to live by the Paradise Falls. They decide to save money to achieve her dream, but a series of problems, such as the house being destroyed and the car breaking down, force them to break the piggy bank each time. They grow older and become elderly, yet they enjoy every moment together. One day, Farid realizes that he hasn't fulfilled Eli's dream, and he feels sad. He buys 2 tickets to South America to make her happy, but he can't surprise her, as her health suddenly worsens, and she is taken to the hospital. Ellie gives him the adventure book and bids him farewell before passing away. Time passes, and Farid lives alone, having become very old. He continues to clean the house as he used to do with Eli, but he finds himself surrounded by a new construction project. One of the workers approaches him and offers him a large sum of money to buy the house, but he refuses. When one of the workers accidentally breaks his mailbox, Farid gets angry and tries to defend the mailbox, but unintentionally injures the worker. The project manager exploits the incident and files a lawsuit against Fred, leading to a ruling that he be transferred to a nursing home. Fred feels sad about having to leave his house. He sees Eli's adventure book and remembers his promise to her. The next day, 2 people come to take him to the nursing home. Farid asks them to wait a little longer until he bids farewell to the house for the last time. Everyone is surprised by a large number of helium balloons tied to the chimney, which lift the entire house to soar into the sky. The house flies high, and Farid feels happy because he will finally be able to fulfill his promise to Ellie and visit the Paradise Falls. He turns the house curtains into sails to control the direction and heads towards South America, telling Eli's picture that he hasn't forgotten his promise to her. A short while later, Fred heard a knock on the door, and when he opened it, he was surprised to find Russell, who looked very terrified. Russell told him that he had been hiding under the house trying to catch the bird that was messing with the flowers. Russell rushed inside happily when he discovered that Fred was heading to Paradise Falls, and he started playing with the house control lever. Fred felt angry and tried to reduce the number of balloons to lower Russell, but suddenly they were hit by a strong storm that swept the house away. It became impossible to control, and the rain started pouring heavily. The house swayed in the air, and things began to fall from their places. Fred tried to save everything he could, and with difficulty, he managed to grab the picture of Ellie before it shattered. Fred woke up after a while to discover that Russell had tied all the contents of the house with ropes while he was unconscious. When Fred looked out the window, he was shocked to see that they were above the clouds. He didn't know their exact location, but Russell confirmed to him that they were in South America using the GPS device he was carrying. Unfortunately, Russell accidentally dropped the device out of the window. He didn't know their exact location, but Russell confirmed to him that they were in South America using the GPS device he was carrying. Unfortunately, Russell accidentally dropped the device out of the window. Fred tried to reduce the number of balloons, causing the house to gradually descend from the clouds. After a short while, they approached the ground quickly, and the house crashed, causing Russell and Fred to fall. Fred quickly ran to grab the water pipe to prevent the house from drifting away, and they managed to secure the house just before it fell off the edge. Suddenly, the fog disappeared, and Fred was filled with joy when he saw the Paradise Falls in front of him. Fred decided to make Russell climb the pipe to reach the house and pull him, but Russell failed to do so. Fred felt frustrated because they were on the other side of the mountain, making it difficult to reach the waterfalls. Russell suggested pulling the house like balloons at festivals, and Fred liked the idea. The two of them started pulling the house using the irrigation tube. Elsewhere, a strangely shaped bird appeared, fleeing from a pack of dogs that were chasing it. The bird managed to avoid all the traps with difficulty. Before the dogs reached him, they heard a whistle coming from Fred's speaker, who asked Russell to hurry. But Russell was tired and needed to take care of his business. While Russell was searching, he saw strange footprints and thought they belonged to the bird he was looking for. Suddenly, the bird appeared and took a piece of chocolate that Russell was carrying. The bird loved the taste of the chocolate and began to approach Russell, who continued to offer it food. When Russell returned to Fred, accompanied by the giant bird, Fred was shocked to see the bird, which looked gigantic but beautifully shaped. The bird started playing with Russell, mimicking Fred's movements in a funny way, which annoyed the latter. They continued on their way with the bird following them constantly. Suddenly, a talking dog appeared, astonishing Fred and Russell. The dog introduced himself as Dash and explained that he had a collar that enabled him to speak, an invention made by his leader. Dash told them that his mission was to find the bird. When the bird attacked the dog, Dash was delighted and insisted on taking it to his leader. Fred agreed to that, but the bird and Dash continued to follow them. Elsewhere, the pack of dogs learned that someone was trying to catch the bird before them. Their leader, Alpha, decided to act quickly to maintain their loyalty to the leader. When Alpha communicated with Dash through the collar, he was shocked to see the bird next to him, pinpointed its location, and began moving towards them. While Dash was trying to convince the bird to join him, he made a mistake that angered the bird. Fred decided to get rid of Dash and the bird together. He took a ball from his stick and threw it far away to make Dash go after it, then took a piece of chocolate from Russell and threw it to the bird to distract it. He seized the opportunity and pulled Russell with him, trying to get away from them. After a period of continuous walking, everyone got tired and decided to take a rest. But they were surprised to find Dash and the bird next to them. At night, it rained, so they all took shelter under the flying house to avoid getting wet. Meanwhile, Russell talked to Fred and told him that he doesn't see his father much, as he is always traveling or busy, but he promised to be there on the day of the celebration to give him the Senior Citizen Helper badge. At that moment, Farid felt the duty to protect the bird and promised Russell that he wouldn't let anyone harm it. And the next morning, they found the bird on the roof eating from Farid's food. Suddenly, they heard the bird calling, and they knew it was calling for its young. Everyone was astonished when they realized that the bird was a female. The bird bid them farewell and flew towards her young. But after a short while, sensing danger, she returned. Suddenly, a pack of dogs appeared, surrounding Fred and Russell. The leader of the dogs, Alpha, approached Dash and asked him about the bird's whereabouts. Dash replied that the bird had flown away to return to its young. Alpha got angry and forced Fred and Russell to go with them to meet their leader. Along the way, the bird was hiding above the house. Over time, the number of dogs gradually increased until they completely surrounded them. Dash felt regret for what he had done, and signs of sadness appeared on him. And when they met the leader of the dogs, Fred discovered that it was Charles, the explorer he had admired, and his achievements. Charles welcomed them warmly and tied Fred's house to his giant balloon. Then he invited them to dinner, where he showcased his discoveries and the bird structures he was trying to prove the existence of. While everyone was talking, Russell told Charles about the bird that was with them. Charles was suspicious and threatened to kill them if no one told him where the bird was. At that moment, the bird appeared from the top of the house. Fred and Russell seized the opportunity and escaped with the house, but the dogs began to chase them. The bird intervened and pulled the house away quickly, trying to escape from the dogs. During the escape, Russell fell from the edge, but he was tied to a rope that Fred was able to use to save him. In the end, they managed to cross the river, but the bird was injured due to a dog bite. Fred and Russell decided to help the bird return to its young. Meanwhile, Charles was angry with the dogs for failing to catch the bird, so he decided to chase it himself. As for Fred and Russell, they reached the place where the bird lived with its young. Fred tied the house to a tree, then tried to bring the bird to its chicks. But suddenly, Charles's balloon appeared, and he threw a net over the bird to prevent it from escaping. Fred and Russell tried to cut the net to free the bird, but Charles set fire under Fred's house. They had to go back to put out the fire and save the house. The dogs and Charles seized the opportunity and took the bird with them to the balloon. After Fred extinguished the fire, he harshly blamed Dash, saying that none of this would have happened if he hadn't met them. Dash felt sad and distanced himself from them, while Russell decided to go alone to Paradise Falls, despite the dangers. He took the flying house and set off, determined to achieve his dream. The next day, Fred manages to drive the house to the Paradise Falls to fulfill Ellie's dream. But he feels a great sadness, throws away all the medals he received, and goes to sit alone. Fred goes back inside the house and starts organizing everything and putting it back in its place. While checking the adventure book, he is surprised to find pictures that Ellie had placed inside the book, which makes him happy. He gazes at the pictures of them together and feels how much he misses her. Then he finds a letter she left him at the end of the book, thanking him for their adventures together and encouraging him to seek a new adventure. When Fred leaves the house, he finds that Russell has taken a bunch of balloons and flown away with them to rescue the bird. Fred feels scared for him, so he starts throwing everything out of the house to lighten the weight and make the balloons lift the house again. Indeed, the house flies again, and Fred manages to control it to set off towards rescuing Russell and the bird. Shortly after, Fred hears a knock on the door and is surprised to find Dash hiding under the house. Fred is overjoyed by his presence and hugs him. Meanwhile, Russell reaches the airship and manages to enter through the window, but he finds himself surrounded by dogs that tie him to a chair. Charles comes to ask him about Fred's whereabouts, and when he looks out the window and sees Fred approaching, he gets angry and opens the balloon door to try to drop Russell, but Fred saves him at the last moment. Fred throws the water pipe at the balloon so it can grab onto it and manage to save Russell. After that, Dash intervenes and brings the house closer to the balloon, allowing them to enter. Fred and Dash enter the balloon and sneak in without the dogs noticing them. They reach the bird's location and quickly hide when the dogs enter and surround the bird. Fred thinks of a plan to distract the dogs, so he throws a ball outside the room and closes the door on them. After that, he frees the bird and takes it with him. At the same time, Russell frees himself but falls from the house and hangs onto the water pipe. When Charles sees that, he orders the dogs to attack him using the drones. Fred continues to save the bird while Charles tries to confront him. In the end, Fred manages to save the bird with Dash's help, who uses his intelligence to manage the dogs and make them attack each other. On the surface of the airship, Fred faces Charles in a final battle. Charles shoots at the balloons, trying to bring down the house. At that moment, Fred saves the bird again, and the bird jumps at the last moment, causing Charles to fall alone. Fred is affected when he sees his home disappearing into the clouds, but he is happy with his success in returning the bird to its young. When they reach the bird's nest, they see its small children who look very beautiful. Farid bids them farewell and leaves them his staff, adorned with beads, as a gift. After that, he and his companions board the new airship and return to the city. On the day of the ceremony, all the parents attend except for Russell's father, who does not show up. But Fred comes and presents him with the elemental he had kept all along and thanks him for his help. Russell feels overwhelming joy and hugs Fred. Days pass and the two of them share happy moments together, embarking on new adventures and trying things for the first time in their lives. As for the house, it settles next to the Paradise Falls, just as Ellie had always dreamed. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button to get more new videos. See ya!